So the theme this morning is do a restart. I've been working with this idea of starting over, restart January, but this specific is not like restart your life or restart. I want to talk about restarting something very, very specific. So I want you to first play a game with me. You must only do what Willem says you must do. So Willem says touch your nose. When Willem says touch your nose, put your hands on your head. When Willem didn't say put your hands on your head. When Willem says put your hand on your nose, when Willem says put your hand on your head, put your hand on your nose. You see. So, it's about voices. It's about voices. It's about the age we live in and the unheard voices. It's about going on your phone, going on your app, going on Instagram, going on Checker 6060, getting Woolworths Dash, getting Facebook, Instagram, all forms of social media, and it's about spreading voices but hearing voices talking to you. What are these voices saying to you? Unconsciously and consciously. What are they saying to you? As you go through the day, each and every day, voices are talking to you. And it's not like voices that you hear. It's voices in your head. Now, you didn't know they're going to say this Dominee is mal. He's hearing voices in his head. But I'm talking about when you're driving. I'm talking about when you're alone, when you're driving to work, driving away from work, driving to pick up the kids, driving to some place, and your mind, you're alone with your mind. And your mind starts traveling through your life. And as your mind travels through your life, there's always some form of critic. Have you experienced it? There's always someone or something in your mind telling you this, that. Watch out for this. Watch out for him. Watch out for her. Watch out for this. Think about this. It's normal. Your mind is there to protect you, so these voices are normal. But I think there's a voice we leave out a lot of times in church. And it's the voice of evil. As in Genesis 3, we read this narrative about a serpent. Now, a serpent was a symbol of wisdom in the Old Testament. And the serpent was more crafty than any other animal or wild animal the Lord had made. He said to the woman, God clearly said, remember, it's Adam and Eve, they're in the Garden of Eden. And he said, you must eat from, did God really say you must eat from every tree in the garden? Did God really say everything is good? Did God really say you're okay? Did God really say you're in a great place, you're fine, don't worry, everything's going to be fine? Did he really say that? Did he really say he's in control, he's got everything under control, and you are in the palm of his hand and you are safe? Did he really say all of that? I'm just exaggerating a bit. And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of any tree in the garden, but God said you must not eat from that tree. That is in the middle of the garden. You mustn't touch it because you will die. And God did say, you must eat not from the tree in the middle of the garden. That's what he said. The serpent looked at the woman and he said, you certainly won't die. I mean, if God loves you, why would you die? Why would he let you die? For God knows that when you eat from a tree, your eyes will open and you will be like God. And you will know and you will see the difference between good and evil. And so the woman ate of the tree. The story tells us that there's more than one voice in my head. There's more than one narrative in my life. There's the life I'm living. There's the life I want to live. And then there's a life that the evil or something bad does not want you to live. And these roads merge and they cross paths. Now, interesting. So what happened was after they've been kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Remember, the garden is this place where God says, I've got this perfect will for you. I've got everything for you. Everything you want, I've got for you. Just do not choose the bad things. Then the serpent lets him choose the bad things. Now, they end up in the desert. What happens in the desert? So the desert is a big metaphor, but also a real life experience in the Old Testament. What is in a desert? You get the garden and then you get the desert. If you go up to Iraq, Iran, Syria, you get the desert. What happens in the desert? Who can provide for you in the desert? No one. Wie kan vir jou sorg in die woestyn? Niemand. Who can bring you a glass of water in the desert? No one. Who can guide you in the desert? No one. If you're alone there, no one can guide you, no one can be there. So Jesus and humankind, as we all end up in the desert because of our choices. Because we choose to listen to, sometimes we choose to listen to the wrong voices. And these voices, and we end up on this lonely place called the desert. This desert can be painful, it can be traumatic, it can be loneliness, it can be critique, it can be every single thing you do not want it to be. I don't want to ask you to raise your hands, but I'm sure that all of you have been or are in some form of a desert. Because the desert feels like God has left you. Now, interesting, in Luke 4, Jesus, and it's in the beginning of Luke, so Jesus is baptized. And what is the first thing that he does? Jesus he's close to God, he's been baptized. What is the first thing he does? Luke 4 says, Satan enters. He enters. Jesus is tested not in the garden, but in the wilderness, in the woestyn. I remember if you're in a desert, I'd take any voice. I'd listen to any voice. If there's one voice that tell me, I'll bring you water, please bring me water. I won't even look who it is. I won't even think who it is. Just bring me water. It's fine. Bring me water. I will listen to whatever voice because I'm desperate. Because I'm in the wilderness. So Jesus is in the wilderness. He's in the desert. He's in the place that everyone thinks that God has forgotten you. Jesus, full of the Holy Spirit, left the Jordan and was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, where for 40 days he was tempted by the devil. So they even say for 40 days he didn't eat. So for 40 days he didn't eat and drink. Now he's in the desert. He didn't eat, he didn't drink. He ate nothing during these days. And at the end, he was very hungry. Now, that's like the pinnacle of loneliness. Being in the desert, 40 days not eating, not drinking, and you're there starving, hungry, thirsty. And the first thing that approaches you is the devil. And he says to him, well, again, same thing as Genesis. The devil doesn't really sin. He just provokes sin. He just questions loyalty. He just lets you sin. But in the end, you sin. So what does he do here? He tests the loyalty of Jesus. He says to Jesus, if you are the Son of God, tell this stone to become bread. Now that is a big test. If I haven't eaten for 40 days and I'm in the desert, and I have the power to turn a stone into bread, I'll do it to feed my hunger. But Jesus is smarter than that. He says, it is written, man shall not live of bread alone. So the devil doesn't leave him. He doesn't say, okay, shop, I've got you, it's fine, I hear what you say. He stays with him. And he says, the devil led him up to a high place and he showed him all the kingdoms of the world. And he said to him, I will give you everything and the authority and splendor it has given to me. And I give it to anyone I want. If you just worship me, it'll be yours and yours alone. The devil says, listen, so if hunger is not a temptation for you enough, let me tempt you with power. Because in the desert, what do you want? Power. You want to build your own house. You want to build your own bathroom. You want to build your own shower. You want to build everything for yourself because you can provide for yourself. You can save yourself from being in the desert. God answers him. He says, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. The devil led him to Jerusalem and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. He said, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself down from here. So he's testing him on earthly things, such as bread, water, testing him on power, testing his loyalty. If you are the Son of Man, you can save yourself. And then he takes him to a highest point and he says to him, I just want to go back one verse. The devil led him up to a high place and he showed him instant all the kingdoms. He told him, I will give you all the authority if you serve me. The devil led him then to Jerusalem, had him stand at the highest point of the temple and said, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself down from there. So if you feel like giving up, I've now tested everything. I've now done everything. And I know you're in the desert, and I know you're struggling, and I know you keep on fighting every day. The devil keeps on testing, and he keeps on challenging. And at the end he says, God has left you. Because, what does the devil say to him? He says, I will command, in the Bible it says, Jesus answers him, I will command his angels concerning you to guard you and to keep you safe and carefully. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike a foot against the stone. And Jesus answered, now this is what the devil is saying. He says, jump, kill yourself, jump, surrender. You don't need to fight this battle. You don't need to try to do good. You don't need to try to fix the world. Just give up, surrender, throw your life away. Because the Bible says if you just trust the Lord and everything will be fine and it'll be good. And Jesus says no. He answers, he says, do not put the Lord your God to the test. That is his final answer to Satan. Do not put the Lord your God to the test. When the devil had finished all of this tempting, he left him alone until an opportune time. So this is one of the first places where we read of the devil in the New Testament, is in Luke. So he's testing Jesus in the wilderness. And I think most of us would have failed this test. But this is a very powerful text because Jesus didn't fail the test. And we failed the test. But because he didn't fail the test, we must remember that he is within us. And sometimes it feels like the wilderness is bigger than God. Sometimes it feels like when you're looking around you, you want to give up. Because there's more signs of you telling you that you should give up than there are signs telling you should live. Signs telling you that you should go on and that you will succeed. But Jesus says, no, I'm in you. I've defeated all temptation. I've defeated everything that's bad. So there's two other stories and two other narratives I want to use. The other one was in Luke 22. So now Jesus, he fought off the devil, and he's got this band, he's got this brotherhood, this disciple group of 12 people following him, worshiping him closely. He's got this close group of friends. And remember, he sleeps with them, he eats with them, he shares his life with them. It's like family. He shares it with family. But one of them is called, and you know what his name is, Judas. Judas walks with Jesus all the way through his life, that career. And you know what's amazing? Jesus knew he was going to betray him. He did not treat him differently because he knew he was going to betray him. So in Luke 22 it says, now the festival of the unleavened bread called the Passover, which was approaching. And the chief priests and the teachers of the law were looking for some way to get rid of Jesus, for they were afraid of the people. Then, now this is Luke 22, the second time Satan enters the scene. Then Satan enters Judas, called Iscariot, one of the 12. And Judas went off to the chief priests and the officers of the temple guard and discussed with them how he might betray Jesus. They were delighted and agreed to give him money. Money. He consented and watched for an opportune time to hand Jesus over when the crowd is not present. Money is one of the ways that Satan also uses us. Money is one of the ways that bad and evilness use us. Because money does not give us power. money reveals power. Money reveals who we really are. If you look at where you spend your money, you will know where your heart is. If you look at on what things you spend your whole salary, you will know and see where your heart is. And at this point, Satan tested the loyalty of Judas, saying, almost like the same in the wilderness, are you loyal to God? Or can I give you some money? Be loyal to me. Because I can provide for you. Satan, I can provide for you. God also can provide for you, but I can survive. And Judas chooses, and he says, I'll rather obey money than God. My last text I want to look at was Acts 5, that also really amplified this to me. There was a man named Ananias and his wife Sapphira also sold a piece of property. With the wife's full knowledge, he kept back a part of the money for himself, but brought the rest and put it on the apostles' feet. Then Peter, one of the disciples said, Ananias, how is it that the Satan has filled your heart that you have lied to the Holy Spirit and have kept for yourself some money you received from the land? Didn't it belong to you before it was sold? And after it was sold, wasn't the money at your disposal? What made you think of doing such a thing? You have not just lied to human beings, but you have lied to God. It's a transaction that went bad. And it went bad because there was ulterior motives to the transaction from Ananias' side. And when Ananias heard this, he fell down and he died. And great fear seized all who heard what had happened. Then some of the young men came forward. They wrapped his body and they carried him out. About 3 hours later, his wife came in, not knowing what had happened. Peter asked her, tell me, is this the price you and Ananias got for the land? Yes, she said, this is the price. And what happened to her? Peter said to her, how could you conspire to test the Spirit of the Lord? Listen, the feet of the man who buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out also. At that moment, she fell down at his feet, and died. And the same men came in, carried him. Voices in our heads everywhere. But also is the Satan. And he's also providing a voice. And his voice is not always crystal clear. You know, he doesn't come to you and say, Willem, I'm going to do in 2024, I'm going to do the following things with you. I'm going to test you on this, this, and this. And if you fail that, I'm going to give you some more tests. That, and that. But I'm going to give it to you beforehand. No, he knows more than that. He knows more than that. So what does he do? What does he do? As you are driving, as you are going about, he plants a seed. And he uses what he knows is our weaknesses. Money, sex, power. There's even more, there's a lot more. And he plants those things in our heads. And you know, those things tend to say, I am okay. I do not need God. But if I look at Luke 4 especially, he says that do not fall for these earthly things. Do not trust on these earthly things. Trust in me. That's a difficult conversation to have because it's not like you should sell everything or just, but it's more of a rational, irrational conversation. You need to have saying to God, listen, Lord, I struggle with finances. Lord, I struggle with a lot of things in my life. But this struggle I will not surrender. Point 1. As Jesus did in the desert. I will not surrender because it's going tough. I will not give up and I will not surrender and I will say I will obey money because it's going tough. I will remain in the fight and struggle to keep alive because I know that you will provide what? My daily bread. You will provide to me what is necessary. I will keep on fighting. But my biggest fight will be against the forces of darkness and the forces of evil. Satan cannot be creative. It's not part of who he is. He's destructive. His main goal is to destruct. How does he destruct? He divides. His biggest power is in division. What does he do? He divides. How does he attack a congregation? He doesn't come to everyone and attack the congregation. He attacks the pastor. Because then he takes down the congregation. He doesn't attack a family. He just maybe attacks the husband or the wife. Just by planting the seed, is my husband enough? Is my wife enough? Isn't there someone better for you? You could do so much better. Just a seed. You tend to it, you driving and you watering it. He's saying, restart means to press that restart button. It's on your device, usually it's on your computer. But usually you press restart, that emergency restart button you press when it's become frozen. It's become useless. Nee, wanneer jou phone vries, when your phone freezes, it's just sticking there. It's not going any further. And when you're at that point and you realize this thing is not more productive, it's not productive, I want to restart and I want to reset it. You reset it. Usually you have to keep it in for 30 seconds. I don't know, the technicians or the IT guys tell me. 30 seconds at least. But sometimes you need to do that with your life. To say, I'm watering and I'm listening to the wrong voices. There are voices in my head, there are voices convincing me of division, of destructiveness, and that is not part of who God is. If God is love, then it's not destruction. It's unity. So what are the things that you can ask yourself? If I want to restart, I want to restart by thinking other thoughts. These thoughts will entail that it will not be easy. Life will never be easy, especially for a Christian. And it's a narrative in the Bible that says that if you try to live close to the Lord, the attacks will be more. It is in the Bible. Because if you look at the stories in the Bible, it's people who try to be close to the Lord are attacked more likely than others. It's like that one story, I don't know if I told you guys, but where he says where the party is really rough. You know where Satan is. Where the party is really rough. You know where Satan is? He's on the roof enjoying a beer. Because he's already done his job. But where the church are active, and where the church wants to build, and where the church wants to unite people, where the church wants to spread love, he's worried. Where people want to forgive, he's worried. Because it's not part of his nature. It's not who he is. So how do we defeat them? How do we defeat Satan? Well, God has defeated him, and that his death is at the end of the eternity. We know that. Revelation tells us this. But on earth, his mission is to destroy and destruct. His mission is to get voices in our heads. His mission is to say, you're not good enough, to spread that word. Your wife, your husband's not good enough. You are not good enough. What you are doing is not good enough. You do not have enough money. You do not have enough power. You do not have, etc., etc., etc. For God, it's about him saying, Lord, I trust you. And then the biggest commandment, to love the Lord your God and your neighbor with your whole heart. With your whole heart and yourself. So if you want to think about how to really listen to the right voice, listen to the voice of love. Listen to the voice of unity. Listen to the voice of bringing together. Listen to the voice of peace. Listen to the alternative voice of what you want to do. And ask the question, how would Jesus do it? And it's amazing about Jesus because he knew He knew Judas was going to betray him, but he didn't treat him otherwise. He didn't say, I would have been really cross if I knew one of my my close circle of friends. I would have put on WhatsApp, I've put it on a big status, and I would have sent them a broadcast list saying, this guy, you must know this guy, what he's going to do. He's going to do this. I don't know if Jesus would have done that. I don't think he would have done that. Restart today. And I want to give you a moment to restart. And I want to give you a moment of prayer saying, Lord, there's too much and too many voices in my head, and they're destroying my life. And on this day, I want to declare and I want to pray and I want to say, Lord, I trust you with all my life. I trust you with my wife, my kids, my money. I trust you with every single thing I have. And yes, I've made mistakes. But Lord, today, I want to reset.